This is our special Earth Day edition of the community call. And I'm just glad that you're here to engage with us in community about collaboration, activism, why we are here on this beautiful planet together as artists. So I'm Nicole Dement, the executive director of SOLA, and SOLA stands for Support of Old Lady Artists. Some of you are SOLA awardees, so you know SOLA well, and some of you I recognize on many of these community calls. So thank you for joining us again. We have grown so much since 2016 when Jenny Ruffner founded SOLA with a single $1,000 unrestricted SOLA award to Gloria Bornstein. And since then, we are serving 26 women, soon to be 31 women, as soon as we hear what the jury is going, who the jury is going to select. And by the end of the year, we will have given $129,000 in unrestricted cash. We're super excited about that. And this is another component of the things that we're doing. So again, I'm really glad you're here. Thanks to Robin Arnitz, our deputy director, for your support tonight. She's going to be tracking the chat. So if you have questions, please add them in there and we'll do our best to get to them towards the end. And a warm thanks to Marge Levy, an ongoing and essential part of everything that we do at SOLA, and in many ways, a co-founder alongside Jenny of SOLA. So before we begin the conversation, I'd like to pause and acknowledge the land we're on, sort of ground us in place and presence, especially on this pre-Earth Day. We acknowledge that we are gathering today on the unceded ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Duwamish, Suquamish, Muckleshoot, and other tribes who have stewarded this land since time immemorial. And as we honor the earth tonight, we also honor the original stewards of this land, those whose relationship with the natural world is rooted in reciprocity, respect, and deep ancestral knowledge. I invite you, wherever you're joining from, to maybe take a moment to recognize the indigenous peoples of the land you occupy, if it's outside of Seattle or the area in Washington, and those who join us in the future, and to reflect on what that means to be in right relationship with the earth and with each other. So tonight, we gather for this creative collaboration, and we'll be in conversation with two extraordinary artists and SOLA awardees who use their practices not only to reflect the world around them, but to shape it with care and insight and beauty and through collaboration. And Chadwick Reid and Natalie Niblack are longtime artistic allies whose work invites us to look closer, feel deeper, and consider the role of artist. Natalie brings bold, multidisciplinary approaches to environmental and social themes. She creates work that challenges, provokes, and ultimately inspires. At least I am inspired. And through her collaborations, she reminds us that creativity can be a form of civic action. And she's a Skagit Valley-based artist whose art in a variety of mediums explores the impacts of climate, culture, and our shared choices, especially as they affect fragile species and landscapes. And joining Natalie in conversation tonight is Anne Chadwick Reid. Anne's intricate hand-cut paper work reveals the delicate interdependence of ecosystems. Her collaborations are reverent visual storytelling that are inspired by her local landscape and the environmental challenges that the native habitats are facing locally and throughout the Pacific Northwest. A longtime educator and former faculty member at Skagit Valley College and now works full-time in her studio on Samish Island. In tonight's conversation, we'll explore their journey as collaborators, We'll get some tips. We'll get some possible things to look out for with interdisciplinary work, and what is the evolving role of the artist as advocate. So welcome, Natalie and Anne.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So here we are with this creative, collaborative ally team that we have here. Can you tell me a little bit about the previous slide that was up? Whoever wants to go first.
It was a show we had. It was one of 4 collaborative shows that we had. That one was at Eastern Washington University. And this was a gallery in Cheney. It was where the art school was. And the other slide showed a setup for a talk that we gave that we gave at the same time as we had the exhibition, which we feel like that's an important aspect of these collaborative shows, that we engage an audience with what we were doing and often invite other people to speak, particularly people from other fields, especially scientists.
I love that. Yeah, part of our preparation for this, we were talking about all of the different ways that we could reach beyond the choir. And it was sort of the inspiration for the theme that we have tonight, of course, Earth Day as well. So, Anne, maybe can you tell us how your collaborative relationship began?
I sure can. You know, it has to do with community. And I have known Natalie for a very long time. We've both been teachers. We've both been involved in artist cooperative groups. And we've both been involved in smaller projects. One was a women's printing project. And we got to know each other over time. And I think what we realized is we both had that same passion for doing something that would address the climate crisis. And so those pieces that you just looked at were a really kind of first effort where we decided, okay, let's collaborate and create a show and see where we can take it. And that's where it grew then. And alongside of that, we were both very much involved in being citizen scientists. And so we took some local courses that had to do with restoration and working with groups that were environmentally involved. We signed up for what was called a Salish Sea Stewards class, where we had an opportunity to listen to lecturers, meet tribal members, spend 6 weeks listening to all about where we lived, what was in the water, what was in the estuary, what was in the riparian areas. And out of that, then we became citizen scientists, and we did 2 projects. One of them was a heron foraging study, and the other one was working for a coast program at the University of Washington, where we did beach debris monitoring at Bowman Bay. So the slide that you're looking at now is the 2 of us at Bowman Bay, where we would go once a month and pick up debris and record it and send it in. And now we're doing that for NOAA.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So let's go ahead and advance the slide so we can see some of this art, I think. Is that right? Oh, no, we're not seeing the art yet. So let's go to what was the most fun that you had in what I asked this question in our information we were getting together. What's the most fun that you had on one of your collaborative projects? And Anne, I think you said this one was the most fun, or was it Natalie?
Well, I think we were kind of saying it together.
Okay. Yeah. So tell us a little bit why this is the most fun. What's going on here?
I don't know if fun is the right word, but it was adventurous. Yeah. We went to New Halem. It was during a wildfire, and this was the view from one of the bridges in Portland. It just seemed very ironic to us that we were doing work about climate change, and twice when we brought our work to a show, it was during a major event like this that was directly related to climate change.
We were really grateful that a lot of smaller venues were excited about us having an exhibition that was a collaborative. And so when we went down and we got there, and you can show the next slide, the irony was that it was during COVID and we had to stay at a hotel room, and we got in the hotel room and this is what the carpeting looked like. So we felt like we were being supported by the climate event to present our climate show at the Chehalem Art Center in Newberg, Oregon.
Chehalem, thank you.
Yeah.
Natalie, this is one of yours titled Winter Explosion. What is going on?
Well, this is where it started, pretty much my my change into doing almost solely work that is about the climate. This was about the time where I lived. There was a big controversy about putting in a export facility at Cherry Point, which is north of Bellingham, and there were a lot of protests, which I went to, and I started just paying more attention to the malfeasance of the fossil fuel industry. And I'm within the blast zone of a train track. If something with a derailment like this happened, it would wipe out my neighborhood. Anyway, that's where this kind of started. And I was really pleased that this was part of the Washington State Percent for the Arts. And I was really pleased that, somebody had the gumption to choose something like this,
So
because
this is
it is a little controversial. So
it's owned by Washington State Arts Commission.
Yeah, it's somewhere in Port Angeles, I think.
I love that. I really appreciate that as well. So this is part of the exhibition in Newberg that we were just looking at.
Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah.
And is there another one?
This is much later. I did a lot of work about the fossil fuel industry, and this was the culmination of all of them before I started doing the birds. It has everything in it. It has the plastic in the ocean, has a distant smokestack from a refinery. It has endangered species. There's a turtle all wrapped up in a net, and marbled murrelet, which is endangered, and then the storms that's created by a large fire event. That's what's over on the left. So I was just sort of, I guess, getting it all out of my system in one large piece there. This is they're 5 feet high, I think, and no, 5 feet wide and 6 feet high. Yeah, so it's 12 feet wide totally. Yeah, this is the most recent work I've done. That I'm still, I'm doing mostly work about endangered species and birds and bird recovery. But this, Anne and I went for a walk in Anacortes on the Tommy Thompson Trail, which you're looking at the refinery, and it was these beautiful clouds, the smokestack coming up and making these beautiful clouds. And I made this piece with this. I have a clown doll. It's like my little iconography for the consumer, and I put it in a lot of my work. And this is, I have one with clown dolls coming up out of the ocean. And it was called Folly, and this is called More Folly. So, yeah.
Is that
you'll notice that our work is really different.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons that I think we wanted to put it together.
Yeah.
But we do have some things that are in common. Natalie's work is highly realistic and very engaging to the viewer, so it draws the viewer in. And my work is very sort of dramatic with the black and white, but it's also very curious to a lot of viewers because they don't normally see cut paper in this way. So I think one of the things that the two of us kind of considered was the way that the work would work together to draw the viewers to it. And in that way, it would sort of provoke them and confront them with maybe an issue, but by the, the engagement of the work made it easier for us to kind of bridge the gap between how maybe something that was much more abstracted might not engage the viewer as much, because we were going to a lot of venues where people may not see a lot of abstraction, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just want to add that the way that you engage with my work is different from the way that some people engage with Anne's work, in that mine just kind of hits you over the head with a sledgehammer most of the time. I mean, it's not subtle, but Anne's work is so intricate, and there's just so much delicacy and the hidden words, and it draws you in and makes you have to discover things. So there's this nice balance between those two, just ways of engaging with the work, I think, too.
It makes for beautiful shows too. It's really engaging. So you've worked together, and we'll just keep going through the slides, and you can just stop the conversation as needed to explain or tell us more. But I'm interested, you not only collaborate with each other, but you collaborate with scientists, writers, I think. Natalie, you're working with them,
Yeah.
and what
Yeah,
other
two writers.
non-artists, or how do you select or find someone outside of the arts in particular to really collaborate with? What's your process and reasoning?
Well, for me, it has to do with where I live and the community that I live in. So going to this class that I told you about was an opportunity to meet people, and one of the people that I met in a lot of these was I met a poet and became involved with a poet. And then I met the coordinator of the research center at Padilla Bay. And he was a very generous scientist who offered his help to the Museum of Northwest Art for artists to make connections with for the Surge exhibition that they have every few years. And so there was an opportunity that the museum offered people, and then there was an opportunity for me to go out and look for people. So I think it's, first of all, going to your own community and seeing what you can find. Like, for instance, we have a land trust here that's very much involved with the local projects. So meeting those people opens up doors. Attending events and workshops. I attended a workshop down in Port Townsend that had to do with what they're doing with restoring Gary Oak habitats. Going over there and meeting that community was really helpful, and I was able to meet people. So collaboration can be the more complicated ones, like Natalie and I have, but they can also be found in conversations and in volunteering within your community and beyond. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. So how does it work with artists? With poets, with writers, with
Well, you just I think it has a sort of organic growth because you're interested in certain things, and you, like Anne says, you engage with like-minded communities, and you just discover people. So the writer and the poet that I'm currently inviting to my shows to do readings, the one woman was part of this group called Earth Creative that both Anne and I are part of, and I recommend that to everybody. And it's a consortium of artists from all over the world that do work about climate change, and one of their goals is collaboration between the artists. And I met this woman, and I read her book, and I was just very excited by it, and she offered to come do readings. And I had also read this book of poetry about extinct birds. And I asked her if she would be interested, and she happened to be really good friends with the writer. So the three of us are now talking about doing a couple of things together. So it just kind of evolved organically. I mean, like Anne and I, our collaboration has just evolved out of, being involved in the same groups and the same interests.
Right. And you guys go back to the education days. And I want to make sure that we're just kind of going through your images. Can you tell us a little bit about them? This one here?
This one is called Deluge. I was really interested in the way that climate change has been changing conversations with new language. And everyone's probably heard of atmospheric river. That's something that we didn't never hear about, let's say 15, 20 years ago. But that's just we hear that all the time now on weather reports. But we also have, other words like bombogenesis and deluge and solastalgia and solophilia and terra trauma. So words have become more a part of what interests me to include in the work that I'm making, because it changes the way that you see the climate change. When someone's talking about bombogenesis or a fire tornado, that really emphasizes the scale to which the problem is existing. So I find that words sometimes are very, very powerful. So I was making pieces about the words, and then I started integrating the words into the pieces as well. But this one was called Deluge, and I was doing them in a three-dimensional way. I sort of did some exploration of how I could bring the paper cuts out from the wall, and that's what this was part of.
And how big is this one?
It's about maybe 30 inches tall and kind of wide, about the same way, 30 to 35 inches. And, I wanted just to add something to what Natalie said too. And I think this has to do both with artists that you collaborate with and non-artists that you collaborate with. I think there has to be a chemistry that exists. And I think that you recognize that if you develop a relationship over time. And if you're given a collaborative, sometimes if you're given someone to collaborate with, chemistry isn't there, it's probably not a good idea to do it. Because I think collaboration really requires a respect for the other person's work and a willingness to really let whatever happens evolve, so that it may not be, you'll have the same goal, but the goal may have to change over time. And I've kind of thought that creating a dialogue with someone else kind of leads you to perhaps being able to sort of shift and change things in a really comfortable way, because having conversations is really at the heart of it.
I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. I always wonder, when I've collaborated with someone or partnered up with someone, I have my own vision, but then, they'll push me out of my comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah.
So really great to understand that there has to be, well, of course we all understand there has to be some kind of chemistry.
Let's see, the piece on the right is about a butterfly that only exists on San Juan Island. And it lives in a prairie kind of water habitat. And as the waters rise, it destroys the food in the habitat for the butterfly, whose name now, because I'm having my 74-year-old moment, I can't think of. Natalie, you should probably remember that.
No, don't ask me to remember anything.
Yeah, island. I'll get it and then I'll bring it back.
It'll come.
Yeah. And so, the ones next to it, to the left, those were kind of interesting because I was just so angry at one point that I just decided to, take my pencil and just run it across the page and just create a feeling that I felt about the whole situation. And then I started putting in Island marble butterfly, I remembered. I started to interject bees and specific birds, species that I wanted to place in those sort of hectic environments. So those were pretty straightforward, you know, pieces.
Both of you are doing such intricate work, so precise. And even though, Anne, yours are more abstracted, what is it like to be, I don't know if do you consider yourself an activist? Do you use that word?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Natalie? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is it like to spend hours working on these pieces that can be really overwhelming? I mean, well, I'll just state that the climate crisis is really overwhelming. So what do you find in that blend between art and activism? How does it work? What do you experience there?
I have to make art, and I have to make art about this. I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Because it is an existential crisis. And
Yeah.
and I just feel like it's not sufficient just to make nice landscapes anymore, you know, or whatever, or some navel gazing sort of things that I did in the past. Yeah, if everybody isn't in a panic, if you aren't in a panic about the climate, you're not paying attention. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel like I have a choice. I feel like I would be wasting my time doing other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I have to agree with that. I also find that in a way, because I'm doing it, it makes me feel better because I'm doing it, and I need to get it out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'll find whatever way that I can to get it out for people to look at it, because I want people to look at it and then to be curious once they're there and they're confronting it, to be curious enough about it that they'll want to know more about what that's about. So if it's about island marble butterfly lamenting the rising tides, then when they walk away, maybe, you know, they'll look up island marble butterfly, you know, I never heard of that one, and they'll look it up. Or they'll think, really? It only exists on San Juan Island? That's kind of interesting. So I want people to walk away having some kind of interest to look further than the work that I did.
Yeah.
Well, that's just me hanging my piece.
An installation in Spokane at the same place. Yeah, I love seeing the scale here. So thank you for including this.
Yeah.
You know, unless there's anything about this piece in particular, I'm interested in what is the process of, say, scientists, and one of the premises that we started with regarding the collaborative process is reaching outside of just this choir, the community of artists that might be activists, and what is it like and how is it beneficial or problematic working with scientists or others outside of the arts?
For me, working with scientists is very different because they are data collectors that need to repeat things over and over again. Mm-hmm. And artists are someone who are, you know, much more sort of playful and are immediately interested in sort of shifting the way that you're looking at things and taking what they're seeing and playing around with that, thinking what that kind of brings up in their mind. So when you have a common goal as a collaborator, you know, that common goal is clear with someone, then it gets to be exciting, because then they introduce you to the science and you're learning the science, and then they're beginning to see what they've got from a different point of view. And so there's possibilities once that you get into that, you know, the two of you together or the three of you together or whatever can move to something that neither one of you would have had without the other.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I think of it more as being a translator. Because like Ann said, they're working with data, they're working with emotionless observation. And it has such a huge impact. What their research has such a huge impact collectively on how we understand the world. But looking at like a published paper on, you know, on chickadee behavior is not going to move you. But if you have a painting of a chickadee and you understand that this particular kind of mountain chickadee is at a tipping point and it's looking you in the eye, an artist does that because we bring emotion to it. We bring that slap of reality, if, as it were, of this is the reality of what's happening, and it needs to touch people. I think that the emotional part of it is very important to motivate people to at least think about what we're talking about, if not take action. You know, I mean, ultimately, taking action would be the goal.
So let's keep going through the slides and images here. And I'm open to anything further that you guys have to share about working together, collaborations.
Oh, since this is my piece, I'll just talk about it briefly.
Yeah.
This is a piece that I did for the Surge show, and it's called Tide Flat Plunder. And since most people are from Washington, I assume, they might know that there is a very strong relationship between snow geese and Skagit Valley. When the snow geese come, they bring lots and lots of their fellow geese with them, and people come from all over to watch them as they do their murmuring in the skies, and they move. It's a gorgeous bird, and it's a gorgeous bird to watch as they gather here. As I was fortunate enough to work with two scientists, a plant pathologist on the right there is Natalie Niblack, and yes, that's Natalie's sister. And on the left is Roger Fuller. And Terry really was able to give me an idea of the value of what is underground, what provides our ability to live by what it creates in a food web from the soil. And so the center part of this is all the little microorganisms that you find in the soils that are in the tidelands, that then provide food for all of the plants and the animals that are in the tidelands, which is such a unique place because you get the salt water coming together with the fresh water. And so everything from salmon fry, all the way up to specific kinds of birds. Their livelihood is really dependent on that food chain that exists in a tide flat. Unfortunately, our beautiful snow geese are destroying that tide flat. They spend their days in the fields, in farmlands, eating, and then at night they fly into the tide flat and they root out all of the grasses and the sedges that are holding in the diatoms that hold together the system. And so that whole habitat is slowly disappearing in areas around Skagit Valley here. So I was stunned to really hear about it, learn far more, as I could probably go on a lot longer about it. But the really special thing about this particular collaboration is that Natalie's sister Terry, who is a PhD in plant pathology, she's also a knitter. I mean, a quilter. And so you can see at the bottom of my piece the little quilt. And she created part of my piece then, which is the little house that is the reflection of it being our home. There, that's at the bottom. And she actually quilted in all of those little arthropods and everything that she had introduced me to in that little house that then I had in the center of my piece. So, it's one of the really wonderful things that comes from being able to work with other people. You never really know all the talents that everyone has. This is my most recent piece. It's called Habitat. And for the last year and a half, I've been very involved with the disappearance of the Gary oak habitats. The Gary oak is the only oak that is native to the north to the west coast. And it has in the past run from Northern California all the way up to Vancouver Island. And it's a very, very slow growing tree, but it provides a habitat for a multitude of species. And due to people moving in and replacing what these habitats are with housing, due to the loss of certain species, due to the large trees like Doug firs moving into areas that some of these trees have been displaced in, that it's slowly disappearing. And so there are a number of communities that are all along the West Coast now that are making an effort to bring back these habitats. British Columbia is very much involved in it. So within these pieces, I have words that are included. I have the name of species. I've included cutouts of species. So if a viewer walks up to it, they're going to find out a lot of information about the complexity that makes up this particular habitat.
Tell us the scale.
Each one of those is about 5.5 to 6 feet in length. So it's pretty big. When it's 14 feet when you pull it out across a wall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. And beauty is one of the components of the the message that you're putting forth.
Yes.
Maybe let's skip to the next one. And Natalie, can you tell us a little bit about this?
That is actually my Christmas card. I do a print every year, but I was particularly fond of this because the common yellowthroat is one of my favorite birds. Because his little call sounds like, I told you to, I told you to. And it's just, that's just another medium that I am exploring with birds. It's woodcut, lino cut. This is a new series I've been working on, and it's up now at Seward Park Audubon. I just opened yesterday. The opening was yesterday. It's been up for a few days. And I think that Holly Hughes is the poet. She wrote a book called Passings. It's about birds that have gone extinct based on images from Audubon's paintings. And she's going to do a reading if anybody's interested in it's beautiful, beautiful poetry. It's hard not to start crying when you listen, but it's going to be on the 28th. But this is the first one of the paintings I did in the series. It's called Return to Life. And they take a bird that was pushed to near extinction and was brought back through the Herculean efforts of scientists and government organizations and countries collaborating in this case. Yeah, so this is another one in the series, wild turkeys. Were once millions and millions of them all across 39 states and into Canada and into Mexico. And they were reduced to 30,000 at one point.
So we're looking up in the upper left-hand corner.
Yeah, and this was the first time I've ever put writing on paintings before, and it was painful. Yeah, and all of these birds, each one represents a different way that birds were pushed to near extinction, and also different ways in which they recovered. And the cool thing about the red-crowned parrot was it recovered itself pretty much because it was hunted to extinction for the captive bird industry. And There is a large population in LA and Puerto Rico and Hawaii and South Texas of these birds because they are escapees or were let go, and they've been flocking with other parrot species. So they save themselves in an urban setting now.
Mm.
So with all of these paintings that are in the show, there's more of them, but I did a lot of research with them so that people can read about the journey and all the people involved in saving the birds. Yeah. And this is the most recent one I did. I live in rural Skagit County on the river, and there's a lot of people who hunt. And this is just a picture of what was hanging in front of one of my neighbor's houses. And so I decided to do a memento mori of it. This, I did 66 paintings of birds in the Pacific Northwest that are in danger of not being here at 1.5, 2, and 3 degrees warming. And it's based on a massive study by the National Audubon Society. And I had this at the same Surge show that Anne's piece she showed you was in. And I collaborated with a professor up at Western Washington Fairhaven, who he did his graduate study at Cornell Lab, ornithology. Yeah, it was a very moving experience for me to do this because, you know, just following it every one I did, I fell in love with that bird. And I set it up so that each bird is looking the viewer in the eye. And so when you walk around the room, all the birds are looking at you, and they have motion sensor players next to them that triggers and plays their song as you walk past. So the whole idea was to make, as I was saying before, to take this study and make it a profound emotional experience for the viewer. And yeah, it was fun.
And I think, is there anything further in the collaborations that you have done with non-artist partners that you'd like to add, Natalie?
Yeah, I think what Anne said about there has to be some kind of simpatico between you and them, and an appreciation for what the other person does. And if there isn't, I mean, we had one guy come and talk with when we had a show at Grants Pass, and we both felt that he was a bit dismissive of our work. We hadn't met him before he was invited. We asked the director to invite him. In the end, it all ended up being okay, but it was sort of like, it would have been nice to have somebody who really did appreciate our artwork, what it was doing. So that was uncomfortable, but it wasn't devastating. I mean, he still added a lot of information to what we were talking about. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but yeah.
I think that is really helpful, and I'm guessing you may have added something to his life and further his understanding about how to really reach people. And you talked about the emotional impact, which I'm guessing his data might not have had the same impact that your artwork did. So it sounds beneficial. I'm glad it happened.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put the link to this piece in particular most definitely in our follow-up newsletter. So everybody, please tune in.
Can I add something too?
Please.
You know, there's a lot of residencies that are related to climate change and to collaboration. So I would like to encourage people, if they're interested in residencies, to seek them out. And I think I sent a list to Robin of some that are in Washington and Oregon, and I know there's a lot more in the Northwest that I have not, included. But I just highly recommend that people seek those out, because it really gives you an opportunity to find someone else that would have the same goals and passion that you might have, and give you some time to really get down and think about what you'd like to do. Some organizations that you might want to look at, you know, the Nature Conservancy volunteers, Citizens Climate Lobby, Conservation Northwest, Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. We both, Natalie and I, are part of Earth Creative. So there's organizations for artists. I donate to Earth Justice, Greenpeace, and Environmental Defense. I can't think of anything better than to donate money to those organizations that can really make a big difference, including SOLA.
We're doing our best, aren't we?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And so this is an overwhelming topic. And while we are all here doing the best we can, it can be a lot sometimes. So I love that you've provided resources. Like, what can we do? When future generations come across your work in 100 years from now, what message do you hope that they receive about how artists showed up at this time?
That we showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That an effort was made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did what we could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone here, for showing up and being a part of this important work and conversation. And I'm deeply grateful and continually inspired and impressed by this community, each and every one of you, and this greater movement that we're a part of. It's so important to both speak our truth and speak from our hearts. And while tomorrow is not only Earth Day, it is the start of Give Big. And you've probably heard about it. Give Big is a statewide call to support causes that matter most. And there are so many that are pulling at our hearts right now. And I know many of you are already showing up in such meaningful ways, doing what you can to make a difference. And I thank you for that. I see you making this world a better place than the one we all came into. So the cultural investments that you make through your time, attention, and yes, your donations really do ripple forward and create a more just and vibrant future. And I'm inspired by our founder here at SOLA, who did not give up and pushed through in many, many years of the work that she did. And Jenny believed in the power of possibility. And I quote from her movie, A Not So Still Life, "Art is essential. It connects us, challenges us, and reminds us that anything is possible." And that is one of the main motivators that we have here at SOLA. So if you believe in honoring that kind of devotion in this quiet revolution of creativity that we are shaping to shift hearts and minds, then I invite you to give to SOLA for Give Big. And because what we're doing just isn't about the past, it's foundational to the future that we all want for ourselves, for our descendants. And so whether it's SOLA or another nonprofit that's close to your heart, I just ask you to put your money where your heart is. So thanks, Robin, for putting up our QR code there. You're welcome to begin as soon as tomorrow, and May 7th is the end of that donation period for Give Big. But you know what? You'll be getting lots of emails from us and many others about that. So I thank you for being here tonight, for your work to honor the earth. And I hope that you all have a successful year ahead as the activist that you are, because it's absolutely needed. The artist that you are, do not give up. And thank you so much for your support in all that we do. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Anne. I appreciate you so much for the work that you're doing, the cause that you have beneath it all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole. And Robin.
And Robin.
Thank you, Robin. All right, everyone. Have a great evening.
Yeah.
Good night.
Bye.